On the 7th of June 2020, thousands of people gathered in Edinburgh's Holyrood Park to join in the Black Lives Matter protest in the wake of George Floyd's murder in America by the state police. Similar protests in Bristol in England led to the pulling down of the statue of Edward Colston, who had made his wealth through the slave trade 300 years ago. As his statue was dumped in Bristol Harbour, other statues were also under threat if they represented racism against black people and the slave trade. Here in Scotland, voices were raised against Scottish people of the past who were deemed to be culpable, such as Henry Dundas, whose statue in Edinburgh is a familiar landmark. The pulling down of statues connected with the slave trade has brought to the attention of many the horrendous and ugly period of slavery in which the Europeans bought black African slaves from the Arab traders and transported them to the Americas. Indeed, Britain was extensively involved in this despicable trade, but it was also a Christian movement in Britain, spearheaded by William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson, that finally saw total abolition in the British Empire in 1833. However, the key role that Scottish Christians played in abolishing slavery has rarely been told. In this video, we seek to uncover this amazing story. In Scotland, slavery existed in early times. In the 5th century, St. Patrick, who grew up on the west coast of this country, was captured with his sister by Irish slave traders and forced to work as a slave in Ireland. Later, as a missionary in Ireland, he called the people in Scotland to send back their Irish slaves. In the Middle Ages, the Christian Queen Margaret liberated English slaves from the Scots. During the Reformation times, John Knox and other reformers were held as galley slaves by the French. And in the 17th century, Covenanter Christians who resisted the tyranny of kings were also sent off as slaves to the Caribbean and America. It's not surprising that we find the Covenanter Christians and their descendants in Britain and America being among the first to lead the movement against black slavery even before the Quakers. Some black slaves had been liberated in Scotland in the 18th century through the work of pastors, because Scots law allowed baptised slaves to be freed. But the watershed moment came in 1778 when slave owner John Wedderburn lost his right to keep Joseph Knight against his will, and in so doing changed the course of history, with slavery being abolished in Scotland by Scottish law. It was in Edinburgh's court session that Lord Auchinleck declared it may be the custom in Jamaica to make slaves of poor blacks, but I do not believe it agreeable to humanity nor to the Christian religion. He is our brother and he is a man. The last part of his declaration in Edinburgh inspired the motto and symbol for the abolition movement in Britain, with a picture of a chained black slave and the words, "Am I not a man and a brother?" Scotland's national poet Robert Burns was quick to link the Covenanter struggle with the battle to overthrow slavery when he wrote, "The Solemn League and Covenant cost Scotland blood, cost Scotland tears, but it sealed freedom's sacred cause. If thou art a slave, indulge thy sneers." Slavery may have been abolished in Scotland, but not in Britain. So the slave trade still went on, with many Scots, including some churchmen, becoming wealthy from this obnoxious trade. After former slave Alauda Equiano gave his account to the Church of Scotland General Assembly in Edinburgh in 1792, Scotland sent 185 petitions to Westminster pressing the British government to abolish slavery. Although English evangelical Christians like William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson are rightly recognised as being key leaders in the long struggle to abolish slavery in the British Empire, the Scottish input at that time has often been overlooked. Scottish Christians like Zachary Macaulay, William Dixon, James Ramsay and James Stephen played a huge part in this movement. Final victory against slavery in the British Empire came in 1833. It was January 1846 when Frederick Douglass arrived in Edinburgh. He had fled his homeland of America because, as a black abolitionist, he had had the courage to name and shame the white slaveholding owners in his autobiography. This former slave stirred many audiences in America with his great gift as an orator and preacher, when he informed multitudes about the blood-stained hell of slavery. Before he arrived in Scotland, he had changed his surname from Bailey to Douglas because of his hero James Douglas, who had sought to overthrow tyranny in Sir Walter Scott's The Lady of the Lake. Immediately on his arrival, Frederick Douglass was appointed as Scotland's anti-slavery agent. As Douglas toured Scotland, speaking about abolition of slavery in America, he was amazed at the welcome he received as an equal everywhere. He loved living in this nation, where he said there was scarcely a stream in Scotland, but what has been pouring into song, or a hill that is not associated with some fierce and bloody conflict between liberty and slavery. He revelled in the Covenanter stand against despotic kings and the Scottish resistance against English tyranny over centuries. It would not be until 1865, though, that America would follow Britain and abolish slavery. Today, we can be so grateful for these determined abolitionists who are often called dangerous fanatics in their time. However, as the world's attention is focused on British and American slavery of centuries past, with statues being toppled and defaced, present-day slavery is off most people's radar. Now, in the 21st century, over 40 million people of all colours are held against their wills as slaves. Attempts are being made by groups like Christian Solidarity Worldwide, which has ransomed and freed thousands of slaves in Sudan, but so much needs to be done. Officially, governments all over the world are opposed to slavery, and yet it still goes on. Is it not time to focus our energies and unite to liberate these modern-day slaves? Are they not also men and brothers, women and sisters? We hope you have been inspired and challenged by this video. Christian Heritage Edinburgh is a charity and ministry, and we seek to bring out the amazing story of the Christian faith in this city and nation, which has had such an impact on the world. If you have any questions, please contact us on this email address: info@christianheritageedinburgh.org.uk, or if you would like to find out more about how you can know Christ personally, then click the link in the credits or go to www.christianheritageedinburgh.org.uk.